Greetings, intrepid explorers of the universe. Welcome back to our captivating Discovering Warhammer, a reaction series. I'm Morand, and today we're about to embark on an extraordinary chapter of our journey through the vast tapestry of Warhammer. In this episode, we'll delve into the realms of chaos as we encounter the malevolent chaos demons and the corrupt chaos Astrates. Let's get right into it.
We also got demons and shit.
I just felt someone grab my ass.
What?
Like hard, Nick.
So,
What?
as I've mentioned many times
Ooh,
before,
those
we
legs.
discussed the warp, the immaterium, the hellish landscape, the purgatory dimension realm between the material realm of our existence. Now, in the warp, it's terrifying, horrible. There are demons everywhere. Things are crazy. All your minds and thoughts and emotions get projected there. It is both formless
so you should get your,
and
like,
empty.
worst
It is
nightmares, like,
vast
projected back
and
to you.
tiny. It obeys the laws of time and physics while simultaneously does absolutely nothing of the sort. It is a hodgepodge and a culmination of just unknowable, eldritch, horrifying shit. And there are four gods that permeate in chaos and the warp. These are the four major chaos gods.
Chaos
and if
gods,
we wish to learn about
nice.
chaos, we need to learn about each and every single one of these chaos gods. First up, we have Khorne, and he is the easiest.
that Khorne?
Is your classic Satan. He is
Satan,
all about
he really looks
anger,
like a Satan.
murder, fighting, blood, guts,
Looks
death.
like a mix
You
of
ever heard
Satan and
term
the Balrog.
Blood for the blood god, skulls for the
skull throne.
That's
Yeah.
Khorne.
I've
The
heard
whole
that.
idea
Shout
is
out
that
Alison Grimm.
he is all about the fury and strength of battle. He doesn't care where blood comes from so long as blood is flowing. He wants to fight and murder and carnage and slaughter and death. That is Khorne. Very simple to understand. Next up, you have
Khorne.
Tzeentch, and Tzeentch is the
Tzeentch.
god of change. However, the god of change, it permeates in so many different other ways. He's the most eldritch of all the demon gods. He has this weird way to always be plucking at the strings of the universe. He's always conniving and scheming and doing his best to cause as much little
I like
bullshit
that.
as he can. Tzeentch is unknowable. Everything that makes sense, he will and won't do. Every future and setting and every type of destiny or fate is all foretold
He
and
will
also
always surprise
changeable.
you, then,
It
I'm
is set in
guessing.
stone while also completely random. He knows what everything is going to happen and also that none of it's going to happen. You would ask Tzeentch a question. That question leads to three more questions. And those questions lead to the heat death of the universe, which asks four answers to those questions. And then he thinks to himself, what are questions even really? And are you even asking the questions?
What even
Or are you
are
simply giving
questions?
paths to answers and other horse shit? Tzeentch is just, I'm gonna fuck with stuff. He is yes and he is no. He is the understanding and he
He's
is
literal chaos.
complexity. He is unknowable, and that's what the God of Change is about. Very bizarre, and he likes birds a lot. I don't know why. Next up, we got Papa Nurgle. Papa Nurgle, he loves you for who you are.
Papa
Probably
Nurgle.
not. He will murder
I've
you
heard of
just the
Nurgle.
same. But Papa Nurgle
Quite
is about
recently.
rot, pestilence, death, and decay. He is the end of everything. Him and Tzeentch do not like each other very much because where Tzeentch represents change and adjustment, Nurgle represents stagnation and death. He is all about miasma and pestilence and large
asthma. No,
bloat
same.
and
You got me there.
pus and organs and people just being sedentary, sloth. He is the idea that everything will rot and decay and die. Nothing is certain besides decay and death. All of us will end up the same way.
Nice.
Broken down.
Ooh, they
through
are
just
ugly
sheer,
motherfuckers.
never-ending decomposition.
I like his
So
nipple
the
piercing,
joke
though.
that Nurgle always loves you is generally because of that. Because we all end up the same. We all rot. And we all
That's true.
die and
We all
wither.
die and decay.
That's Nurgle. And he's got a general theme of course, pestilence and different kinds of diseases and sickness and things of that nature. That's generally Nurgle. He's pretty easy to understand as well. And he chunk! Finally, we have the youngest of the Chaos Gods, and that is Slaanesh, also known as the Prince of
Slaanesh.
Pleasure, or the God of Unspeakable Excess.
Hello there.
Slaanesh is generally referred to with sex. But it's not only sex, it's just that's a good avenue if you want to make
Yeah,
stuff.
Aphrodite.
So that's just the idea of the senses of the body being cleansed
holy
to
shit.
not just 11, but more like 17. See, we'll discuss Slaanesh a little bit more when we talk about the Eldar, because they done fucked up. But it, or whatever, is mainly about just the excess of emotions.
Wait, what
and
that tongue
therefore
do?
sex is
Oh, what
generally a
that tongue
large
do?
part of it. However, it's
Why has it got
mostly pain
teeth?
and torture. Lots of pain, torture, but sometimes sexually related or drug related. Lots of drugs. Lots of drugs. Slaanesh gets off on
my
everything.
character?
Extremes in happiness, extremes
drugs
in
is-
sadness,
Sounds cool.
extremes in pain and sadism and masochism.
And then do drugs.
And of course that goes along with the sex part of it as well. It's generally referred to with sex because of the color scheme, very purple, lots of exposed
Lots of
genitalia. A lot of their
psychedelic.
models have like exposed nipples and stuff. And that is generally the theme you go for from a physical side, but it really embodies everything, mainly pain and also the excessive amounts of emotion. So when it comes down to it, you'll find a lot of them have things like spikes or whips or any kind of BDSM style gear because it is unspeakable excess. The prince of pleasure. Everything in excess to the point where it is just sheer frightening. That is Slaanesh in a nutshell. A little bit bizarre and a little hard to describe sometimes, but as we talk more about the Dark Eldar layer in this video, you'll understand it far, far better and far more than you'd want to. Now you might be thinking, why would anyone ever want to join Chaos? They all look horrifying, screwed up, and just frightening things, right?
A little bit.
Well, the thing is that, of course, one, your mind is put into the warp and the immaterium, so you can be easily swayed by chaos demons when they get into your head, especially if you're a psyker. Sometimes regiments of the less mentally strong people, whether they be civilians or, say, low-level guardsmen or conscripts, can be easily swayed by this and become chaos cultists and stuff, and they serve their dark gods and whatever god they personally prefer. However, and this might seem strange,
always a however.
chaos in their own right isn't necessarily evil. See, the warp is
that makes
every
sense.
manifestation of emotion and being, every soul, everything of existence. This includes all the good things. All the different chaos gods have another side to their coin. Khorne might be death, murder, slaughter, slaughter, but he's also got this weird sense of survival of the fittest, trial by combat, and honor. Khorne will never lie to you. Khorne will never stab you in the back. Khorne isn't about conniving and scheming.
even though
Khorne
he's
is about
a
straight up
vicious murderer,
mono,
he
you
is
versus me, get in the ring, we're gonna
honorable.
murder each other hard right now. It may not be a good thing at the end of the day, but it is that other side of the coin. Him and Tzeentch generally don't get along because Tzeentch is that conniving
Tzeentch is
schemer,
the
but
backstabber.
he's also about the idea of hope. Where there is change for your predicament. There is change for your problem. The hope of the galaxy, the ability to bend the world to your will, the idea that your fate is not set in stone, but in reality that you control your own destiny and can control it whenever you want.
Yeah, if you've got that
Change
sort of
your
power,
own
you can.
ways. That is Tzeentch. And of course, Tzeentch and Nurgle hate each other because while Nurgle does represent stagnation, death, and decay, he also represents finality and ending. The fact that you can be mentally at peace knowing that you will end and how you will end. Fear of the
That's pretty
unknown,
good.
fear of change is not present with Nurgle. With Nurgle, everything will rot and die, and that provides that finality, that
Everything
ability
does
that
rot and
this
die.
is over. We are all the same, and we will all end the same. We know the meaning of life. The meaning of life is to live and die and rot. And with that,
thought the
it
meaning of
brings
life was
peace of
pizza.
mind. Slaanesh is a lot more simple. While they are the excess of emotion, they are also the representation of emotion. Slaanesh embodies happiness. Slaanesh embodies excitement and joy and pleasure, not only in the sense of the physical, bam style of pleasure, but also everything else like food and drink and air on your cheek and sunlight, the feeling, emotion and feeling. All of that is also represented with Slaanesh. So you have to ask, why are they always represented as super evil skulls and spikes on everything and want to murder everybody? I don't really got an answer for you on that one. My assumption is that because mentally humans may think worse thoughts even if we don't act on them, and therefore they're projected in the warp more. That one's a little bit weird. I don't know. This is me spitballing right now, but I don't know. You need a super
So, I
bad
need
guy.
facts.
You already got the Imperium of Man. You need somebody to be a little bit worse than them. So you got demons. Honestly, who cares? I just want to buy like a bird magician. Look at him. So cool. So combining all this together on the tabletop, Chaos Demons are generally very melee based. They run in, go really hard. You have lots of summoning and conjuring, tons of spells. Generally a little bit frail, but they have special saves to make them a little bit stronger. You've got giant demons and smaller demons. You got hordes of little boys and tons of big guys. Demons are as they seem. Demons. Nurgle is slow, Khorne is super scary in melee, you've got Tzeentch who are far more into psychers and spellcasting, and then Slaanesh who is all melee, really fast but squishy, but in lots of hordes of tons of melee and pain damage, of course. So overall, the demons are a huge part of 40k and a massive threat to almost every single faction with the exception of a couple. However, the big part about demons is also transferred into the other 9 Primarchs we didn't talk about, which are the Chaos Space Marines.
Chaos Space Marines. Ooh, Astrates. Let's go.
So Horus and all of his boys, all of them in the Primarchs, they have all also become Chaos Boys, and they all have their own special Chaos Legions, specializing in so many different things, just like the Adeptus Astartes, the Angels of Death, the regular Space Marines. Chaos Space Marines aren't a whole lot different than the regular Space Marines. They have the same armor, generally the same training and toughness. They just specialize in different kinds of things. And also a lot of the Primarchs have ascended into greater is it greater demons? They're demon Primarchs at this point. Gigantic, horrifying man-demon hybrids that are pretty awesome, if I'm going to be honest.
Looks
They look
huge
really
compared
cool.
to the rest
But
of them.
them and their associated legions that they are a part of are all kind of going out there and causing a large ruckus for everyone else. Considering the raw strength and firepower of a legion of Space Marines, imagine that entire legion just converting to chaos and immediately fighting you. It's generally pretty horrifying. There's a lot of them, so I gotta write them down. But you've got the Emperor's Children with Primarch Fulgrim, loyal to Slaanesh. These people, they are some messed up people. They're just sensory overload, tons of drugs, tons of torture. And I think Fulgrim is a demon Primarch right now, and oh god, I am terrified to see what that man looks like, at least on the tabletop, because Emperor's Children are not good people. You've got the Iron Warriors, which are kind of like opposite of the Imperial Fists, with Primarch Perturabo, I believe is his name. They're Chaos Undivided. They just kind of serve chaos in a general aspect instead of choosing one of the 4. But the Iron Warriors are big on the siege and fortification, and they're basically entirely against the Imperial Fists and are a major rival. Perturabo, I believe, is also still alive, and I'm also very interested to see what he looks like, because Demon Primarchs are badass. You've got the Night Lords with Primarch Conrad Kurz. Conrad Kurz is dead, which is good because he's a sick fuck. But the Night Lords are generally about terror, terrorizing people, and terrorism. They're generally about fear, and rightly so. You've got the World Eaters with Primarch Angron, still alive, also excited to see. Angron, if you think you've known an angry person, Angron is the angriest son of a bitch you will ever know. Angron removed parts of his brain that didn't make him angry, so he could be angrier. Angron. Fucker's mad.
That's a bit
You've got the Death Guard with Primarch
angry.
Mortarion. They actually have their own special codex and their own major army on the tabletop. Mortarion himself is actually one of the models, and look at him.
That's sick.
Look at him.
That is amazing.
It's so cool looking. Of course, Nurgle based, obviously. So very slow, but very tanky.
That is very cool.
You've got the Word Bearers with Primarch Lorgar. Lorgar is, I believe, still alive. I don't know what's up with him at the current moment, but the Word Bearers are generally the people who caused all the major problems in the beginning. At least get the Black Legion with Primarch Horus. Get fucked, nerd. You've got the Alpha Legion with Primarch Alfarius Omegon. Chaos, I think. And then finally, you've got the Thousand Sons with Primarch Magnus the Nerd. The Thousand Sons also have their own book, just like the Death Guard. Magnus is also a tabletop model. He looks super cool, as you can tell. And they're all super heavily Psyker and kind of Egyptian themed. They look pretty neat. But overall, with all of these Chaos Space Marine factions, you can play as a lot of different ones, but the main ones that you can really work at are standard Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines, as well as the Death Guard and Thousand Sons, as they are the most fleshed out, especially on the tabletop at least. See this right here, this is a really good way to describe the Chaos Space Marines. What the thick-headed fools with their broken corpse of an emperor fail to understand is that not only can they never
Heresy.
defeat us, but they cannot hide or flee or shield themselves from the triumph of chaos. They are finite and we are unbound, undivided. They must not err, or they shall fall to heresy. All who fall join our cause. Every imperial fool who dares to open his eyes is a willing recruit. They strive merely to hold back our fury and might, and it consumes them. Thus, you can see chaos is inevitable. We lurk not only beyond their grasp and at their gates, we lurk within the darkness of their souls, on the tip of their tongues, in their tortured dreams. We are them, but freed from the shackles of ignorance. We are them, grown strong, evolved. We are them, but so much more. As hardcore as that quote is, the saddest part is they're mostly right. Chaos is basically unkillable. You could probably get rid of Space Marines, a decent amount, the Chaos Space Marines that is, but every soul that dies goes to the warp. Every Chaos soul will end up back in the warp. And depending on how hard you killed them, they will come back at some point. Every demon you banish will return at some point.
How do they return?
Chaos is unstoppable. The warp is unending. And while maybe there is at some point some way to stop them somehow, the resources to do so, the requirements to do so, are so far beyond the reaches of man and the other races at the current moment that really it's just an unstoppable force that just keeps on coming and is just barely being slowed. Chaos is by far the biggest threat. They are without number, their legions are everywhere, and yeah, they're pretty scary. So, I promise, we're done with humans now. Let's talk about some Xenos.
Oh, Xenos.
So let's talk about the Eldar,
the...
or also known as the Eldari, which are a super hyper-specialized and very technologically advanced race of, well, elf people. They were
Elves.
as well responsible for the creation of Slaanesh, the newest demon god. How'd they do that?
How did they do that?
Debauchery on a world-ending scale. See, back in the day, it was just Khorne, Tzeentch, and Nurgle. And the Eldar are very, very ancient, millions of years. These Eldar, however, have a bit of a sensory problem. You know, every kind of pain or feeling that you have is a little bit amplified compared to the normal. However, with Eldar, as their race advanced so excessively, and they became so self-reliant, and everything became so easy, there was no requirement for food production anymore. There was no shortages. Everything was basically done. Everyone was so comfortable. And that comfort breeded this weird sedation. And that sedation breeded the requirement for more and more debauchery.
Debauchery.
When everything you have can
Oh,
be
he
so
looks
easily
cool as shit.
acquired, you will end up down this road of pure debauchery. All of the senses the Eldar had that were so powerful, things like feeling, happiness, sadness, and just evil and good, all needed to be satisfied and satiated. And the desire to satiate these senses grew more and more with worse and worse debauchery. It started off with things like sex and drugs becoming so much more rampant.
It always
these
does.
are the first things you generally turn to when
That's why I'm
requirements for
here
living are so easily
on this planet.
accessible. It would get to the point
Sex
that
and
made
drugs.
Sander Cohen in BioShock look sane. All right, this is the kind of debauchery it led to. It was constantly satisfying and satiating these sexual and sadistic or masochistic fantasies that only elevated and elevated. And this was species-wide. People started going down darker, more depraved, and more violent paths as time went on. However, some people didn't entirely take to that. Some of the Eldar were looking at this depraved species that they had become and said, no thanks for me, dog, I'm good. And they bailed. These are the Craft World Eldar. They left on these giant continent-sized starships called craft worlds. They believed in learning the old ways of the Eldar and pushing away from this depravity and debauchery and going back to their main roots. And so they would segment themselves on these giant craft worlds far in the outer reaches of space. They even had this thing called the webway. Remember what we mentioned about warp travel? With
Oh yeah, I was going to say that some sort of warp travel.
Safer, called a webway. And the Eldar webway is actually like a pocket dimension kind of thing. And in that pocket dimension, there were also more horrible, depraved groups and clans that would spend their time in there. And if you imagine the debauchery was bad already, these were debauchery X10. So all of this continued, and it continued, and it bloated until Slaanesh just burst forth. All that emotion, all that mental, well, thought processes, I suppose, all of this in such a condensed space. Don't forget, this is all being shot, all their souls as well, into the warp. All of this depravity right into the warp. So what happened? Boom, Slaanesh was birthed and killed off 90% of the entire Eldar population. Untold trillions, trillions had their souls ripped from their bodies and their actual fleshy bodies devoured by Slaanesh demons. The entirety of the Eldar race was eaten alive and their souls
a lot of people.
Consumed to the Prince of Pleasure. All of them got fucked up. It was so bad that it literally ripped.
By the way, guys, if you see me fidgeting, I'm sorry. I've just got real bad hay fever today.
Materium called the Eye of Terror. That's literally this like quasi horrifying gateway portal from the materium and the immaterium right next to Cadia. And it is horrifying.
Oh, I'm guessing that planet doesn't survive.
Slaanesh, also known as She Who Thirsts, by the Eldar, slaughtered the entire population except for a couple. Those in the craft worlds were actually not affected by this, as they were so far in the reaches of the galaxy. That crazy crack, that birth of Slaanesh, only affected the ones in the center. So these craft world Eldar were able to escape, but Slaanesh got their sights on them. Every time an Eldar will die, their soul doesn't just pass into the warp naturally. It goes straight to Slaanesh, craft world or not. What about those people in the webway? Well, imagine that giant birth happening, but they were only able to just barely get a grasp onto you. Slaanesh was just barely able to hold on. These people are the Dark Eldar, or also known as the Drukhari. The Eldar population right now is so massively small. It is minuscule compared to any of the other most of the other populations in the universe. The Eldar are consistently having issues trying to get their population up, because as their souls are constantly being hungered by from Slaanesh, they realize their entire species is doomed.
Absolutely,
and they understand
at that rate.
It very well. Since the time of the fall, our race has been haunted by what we, in our reckless pursuit of hedonistic
Slaanesh is a little
to. Though our dreams once overturned worlds and quenched suns, we are now fitful shadows clinging to the edge of existence. All the stars in the sky cannot blot out the hateful glare of the red moon's eye. The birthing place of the great enemy pulses with all the malice of a demon that is dreaming, casting its shadow over all we have ever done and all we ever shall. Every twisted strand of fate and casting of the runes leads me to this time, to this place, and it is clear that the final battle awaits me at the ancient Crone worlds, a conflict the likes of which has not been seen since the
Crone world. If I say Crone, then
their corpse of a seer fell to his traitorous son. Is coming, and all my steps lead towards it, no matter that I walk other paths. I see the stars stained red with the blood of the Monkai, and though their wars do not concern me, I would gladly let them destroy one another. I know that to avoid this fight is to condemn my race to inevitable doom, and though all I see is darkness, I know that I will not flinch from my destiny. And now let's talk about cute plastic models.
Bro, I'm straight up not having a good time.
The first playable race we have for the Eldar are the Craft World Eldar and living in those Craft World starships I mentioned earlier.
Well, I don't think we will, because that is it for this video. That was Chaos Demons and Chaos Astrates. Holy shit, slaanesh. I've been told, you know, slaanesh. But holy shit. That whole like story to me was quite interesting. And I'm gonna have to go back and like rewatch it to get it to sink in. But the entire like story around Warhammer I'm finding interesting. After this video, I might have to do a bit more of a deep dive on the factions I've already watched, just so that I can better prepare for watching further faction videos. Because at this point I feel like I've been introduced to the factions and I've heard quite a bit of some of the history of some of them. It's been more rather than others, whether that's because Bricky didn't include it or because there's not a lot. I don't know, but I'm assuming there is, and it's just that Bricky's video here is just a literal skip across each faction in these videos, just to say a little bit about who and what they are, and an introduction to say the least. But yeah, and I'm gonna, in between this video and the next one on Sunday, I'm going to rewatch the first video, get myself back up to date a bit, listen a bit deeper, then watch another couple of videos, and I'll see how I get on. And if you've got any suggestions for any videos in the comments, do let me know, because when we finish these faction videos, I'm going to be wanting to go quite in depth with some of the other lore. So if you've got any suggestions, then please do post them in the comments. It'll mean a lot to me. And I know I don't really tend to speak a lot during these videos, but that's mainly me taking in the information, and I usually only like hype up if I find something like, oh, that's cool as stuff, as shit. But I am interested, and the fact that there's so much to this just means that I've got so much more story to go, and I'm definitely looking forward to that. So yeah, thank you all for joining me on this episode, and if you haven't already, please do like, comment, and subscribe. It means a lot to me. I'm going for 500 subs to be able to get to a YouTube partner, and I know that roughly 93% of the people that watch these videos aren't subscribed. If most of you did just subscribe this once, and just give me a chance to provide you with better content in the future, then we'll hit a YouTube partner in no time. And that means I can do stuff like this on live stream as well, and be able to do more inclusive things with Warhammer. We could even play some of the Warhammer related games that there's out there. I've got a Space Marine in my Steam library. I got it as part of one of those 5 random key things that you used to get a while ago. So we could play that. There's all sorts of games really we could play related to Warhammer. So yeah, please do comment, like, subscribe, and I will catch you all in the next one. Thank you.